Today I'm excited to visit with artist Joann Narron from Warrensburg, Missouri. I'm Rick Jey, and this is Spotlight on the Arts.
Rick Jey Presents Spotlight on the Arts.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts, coming to you from the Lamey's Building in Sedalia, Missouri. Please join me, if you would, in welcoming artist Joann Narron from Warrensburg, Missouri. It's great to have you and to share your passion for the arts, Joe. So welcome to Spotlight on the Arts.
Well, thank you for having me, Rick.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure and honor to be able to sit with you and share your fantastic arts. Well, I'd like to get started with introducing you to the people worldwide and locally, naturally. I guess I would like to say first, I've been looking for the interview since I met you at I guess it was a featured artist at the center downtown. Could you please tell us a little bit about Joann Narron, if you would?
Well, I live close to Warrensburg, Missouri, and I have an Airbnb in town, which is my art gallery. And I do most of my work out in the country. I'm close to the state park, and I have 2 degrees in art from UCM. One is a Bachelor's of Science in Art Education, and I taught for many years. And then my second degree is a master's degree in art with the emphasis in painting.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Now, you're at the state park near the city or small town of Missouri?
Yes, I'm just down the road from it. I'm on top of a ridge out there.
I see.
And I have the forest. State park is my backyard, but I do have acreage, and I have a lot of trails that I built on my acreage, so it's a fun place to be and create art.
Yes, I can imagine. I'm familiar with the Missouri, and I have friends there, so when you told me that that was your location, not to give away your exact location, but that's a beautiful country, wine country, you could say. A lot of grapevines and a lot of history there, and the making of the wines and what have you for many years. Well, I've been painting for a long time. Can you share with us how you became inspired to become an artist?
I don't know when that really happened, because I was a small, tiny child when I wanted to be an artist. And I think my mother had taken me downtown to Kansas City to Hartsville.
Oh, yes.
And my first, I've actually seen artwork by a famous artist was Thomas Hart Benton's
yes.
And that inspired me. And I just always have been painting where I probably should not have been painting, and
Right.
taking cardboard boxes and making architecture and using scraps to create my creations.
Yes. Well, Joey, I guess you basically, as a child, you had to paint whatever you had to work with. I guess what you could be well represented then by the painting over your shoulder here, the corn there on the farms, right?
Well, yes. Most of my life I was on a farm and knew the farm operation, and I had to paint what I had around, so sometimes it was corn.
Yeah, and you do a great job on corn.
Thank you.
It looks very great. Well, what continues to make you get the brush out and take charge again?
I just can't quit. It's just, I've done this since a child, and it's just been continuing on. And I get these ideas that pop into my head, and I just have to work from there and create.
Well, I say, and a lot of people seem to agree with me, that it's sort of in our DNA. Mm-hmm. And this continues. I know a gentleman painting the Mills of Missouri. You might be familiar with him. He basically said, go clear back to the days of the cavemen. Well, the cavemen, they would go out and hunt and bring back something to eat. But he said, I'll just stay here and paint on these walls, and I'll put down how many kills you had, what have you. So we had an artist clear back in those days, as you notice, on the walls. So it's sort of funny, but I think it's in their DNA, and it's just, we never lose it. One lady recently in Springfield, Missouri, she says, if I had to stop painting, I would just stop. So I can identify. Well, Joe, your artwork speaks well of you, and we'll be putting those some of those paintings on the timeline for people to share. Plus, we're going to be going to a tour of Joe's studio. So don't leave us, we'll be showing you a lot more. Well, before we get away, can you give us your contact information, how people could reach you? You do probably commission work?
Yes, a few pieces, and I'm getting ready this year to do one big major piece that will, it's a triptych, and it'll probably take me a whole year to do that one.
Yes.
But I do have a website, and that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
And that is JoannNarron.com. So it's JoannNarron.com.
Excellent, thank you. That way, if you're interested. Now, we'll see in the tour a variety of paintings, but you also do animals, landscapes, and etc. So it'll be interesting to see this really great tour coming up. Well, Joe, we must take a break. So please, if you would, make yourself comfortable while we look at these special messages. After the break, Joe will fill us in on her favorite subject matter, materials used, and her special ways of completing an artwork, with any maybe special techniques that she might pass on to you as an artist. So all art lovers, stay with us. We'll be right back. There's a lot more here on Spotlight on the Arts.
This facility doesn't look anything like it did when I first saw it. My very first job was right here making Levi's for the J.A. Lamey Manufacturing Company. The people who I worked for were great. It was hard work and it was brutal, but the family that owned the building were fair and honest, and they were great to work for. I worked here 7 years. My father worked here 21 years, and my mother 10 years. And it was just a great place. I've never regretted it. I started out in the shipping department, and I graduated up into the cutting room and worked there spreading cloth for most of that period of time. Well, absolutely, Ginger Swearingen would have been the individual who I remember most. She was involved strongly with my acting opportunities, and she was director and producer, and she was fun to work for as well. I've known the whole family for quite a number of years, staff and John and Ginger and Woody, and they were all customers in our business, and they've just done a beautiful job with this. it's just beautiful, and the people that I talk to who have been customers here and visitors have all enjoyed it a great deal. Everyone talks about the quality of the food, and it's just a very entertaining place, and I'm looking forward to it.
Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
How about we kick things off with a little John Henry? Kick it, Joe. Well, John Henry was a little baby boy, no bigger than the palm of your hand. John Henry's happy looked down and he said, Johnny gonna be a steel driving man, Lord, Lord. Johnny gonna be a steel driving man.
The paintings of Douglas Freed exist between representation and abstraction in a realm that few other painters can really call their own. For over 20 years, Freed painted entirely abstractly, but over time he began to see references of landscapes in his abstractions. Gradually, Freed began to incorporate aspects of the landscape, such as times of day and light, in a depict or triptych painted form. Most recently, the multi-panel paintings, as you'll see throughout the program, have transitioned into a single canvas as Freed continues to explore the transcendence of nature through a synthesis of visual experience. The passage of time, light, color, and atmosphere. Freed's paintings continue to evolve in his search for an abstract means to embrace that ambiguity of the physical and spiritual experience of light and its power to foster a more intense life of the spirit through profound emotional experience of form, color, and composition. Well, welcome. So please share a little bit about Ron Emig. If you would look at the camera and talk to our viewers out there worldwide and give them a little bit of a picture.
I was born and raised in St. Louis, but lived in this area since '86. Have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And I've been involved with art all my life, basically, since I could hold a pencil.
Oh, excellent.
Always been drawing horses and cowboys, and that's what I do today.
Creative, connection, control. Support the arts and be the change.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spotlight on the Arts. I will now continue with artist Joann Narron from Warrensburg, Missouri. Well, Joe, welcome back.
Thank you.
Along with everyone else. Before the break, we shared a lot of information, and so let's continue along those lines of thought and expression. Please describe your type of art. and how that came about with your skills that you we could consider, or you could consider.
Well, I do a lot of different mediums. I work in oil, pen and ink, watercolor, and I kind of on being surrealistic. I try to put a little bit of humor sometimes in my paintings, or people have to really look to see if there's some extra things in my paintings. So
I see. Yes. Now, so do you watercolors, oils? What's your favorite medium?
Oh, I don't know, all three of those. I like pen and ink, I do like watercolor, and I do like oils. And I have to decide which medium I'm going to use by what my subject matter is. So I have to kind of analyze what I'm going to do and decide what medium would be best for that to be in.
Now, do you ever mix those mediums?
Well, I have on occasion. You're never supposed to mix acrylic and oil, but I did it very carefully, so there was no problems with it. And I think that will be one of the paintings that you will see on the tour. When you go to the tour.
All right, very good.
And it was the canning jars, excuse me.
Oh, I see. Well, now they say you can paint oil on top of acrylic, but you can't paint acrylic on top of oil.
That's true.
And sometimes that's a good fill. I understand the way I do. Occasionally I will use that acrylic to fill the tooth of the canvas. Really, I like a smooth canvas. I may be going to more of a linen canvas to more or less tame down the teeth or the tooth of a canvas. So that's great. What is your favorite subject matter then?
I don't know if I could really say that I have a favorite subject matter, but I do repeat a lot of my subjects, such as the corn here. And I usually just come up with this idea, and it just pops into my head.
That's the way, once it's in my head, it's there.
But like you said, I do some landscapes, some still lifes, and I recently have illustrated my first book for a person, so I had to do a lot of research and go on a lot of trips to research before I did the book for him.
So you take photos and maybe you do some drawings on site?
Yes.
Okay, that's how you prepare.
Right.
All right, great. That always seems to work.
And then I just go ahead and sketch it out, do a little rough sketch of it. Then I decide, if I'm going to paint on canvas or on board, and then I sketch it on there first, and then with my paints, I will do a linear painting of it with the lines, and then I go back in and underpainting, decide if it's going to be a warm tone or a cool tone, and lay those colors out.
I see. So do you ever use the white canvas, or do you try to get the canvas covered with a darker color? Or do you use a white canvas?
Well, it starts out as a white canvas, but I also gesso my canvases to make them smoother.
Yes.
But usually I try to go ahead and get some sort of, if I'm doing a warm painting, I try to pick out some warm colors to put on
to cover
underneath.
the canvas before you come in with your
Yes.
final setup, I guess. Do you have one technique that you might share with someone worldwide that's learning or they can pick up on?
I think I thought about that a lot, and I do start out, probably the technique happens on my palette. When I'm laying out my colors, I mix my scales right there on that palette before I start painting. So I have, my middle tones, my darker tones, and my lighter values.
Now, do you gray down and do you mix your own darks, should we say, from your main formula that's on your palette?
Well, so usually I mix my darks using burnt umber and ultramarine blue, but once in a while I'll actually use a little bit of black if I need to get it darker. Right. And then it depends. I have my warm, always on my palette I have the warm values mixed, and then I have the cool color values mixed, and I try to put into my whatever I'm painting. If I have background color, I try to put some of that background color into the object that I'm painting. It just makes it more interesting.
Colors.
And I try to limit my palette colors.
Yes.
I just don't want to go hog wild with lots of different
It
colors.
seems like it balances. You look at the old masters, and it appears that they have a balance. You don't see a green that they might have pulled out of a tube. They mix that green with their blue, ultramarine, or
Oh, that's true. I do that
Yellow
the same
ochre.
thing with the green, because green is very tricky color to get right.
Well, we recently took a tour of your studio and learned so much about your passion for art. Let's run that footage. Do you have any? Can you introduce our footage a little bit?
Well, you'll get to see quite a few of my paintings. Not all of them. There's not room for all of them in that house. But there are a few favorite ones that I will mention. So as you roll the footage, people might want to look at those closer. And there are three of my favorite ones are All the Many Faces. The other one is Dream Tree. And then the little dog that I painted, it is Sally, and her alias was Rat Dog. So
Yes.
I liked using the monochromatic tones on her. But I speak about all those paintings.
Yes,
so,
everyone is identified.
So you'll be able to see some of my favorites.
Great. Now, you also have footage of where you teach classes. And tell us a little bit about this fantastic home that's 100 and some years old that you built and made into, you described it as an Airbnb.
Yes, it was a home I moved into after my husband died many years ago. I was out in the country by myself, and I thought it would be better to come into town. So I found this beautiful Tudor Revival home in Warrensburg. And first day I was there, I go, oh, there are people there, and I'm used to my privacy. But I wanted to keep the home, and so I built a studio out near the state park where I actually paint a lot with my oils. And in this home in town, I do have studio space there where I do watercolors. And people can book a class with me. They don't have to rent the Airbnb to book a class with me. So you can get my contact information, like I said, on my website if you'd like to take a. And I do teach watercolor classes there. So.
Mainly watercolor classes.
Yes, it's not quite as messy as my oils where it's everywhere.
Well, you're very versatile, and you'll see that in her artwork. So, well, let's go take that tour.
Hello, Rick. Welcome to my studio and gallery in Warrensburg, Missouri. Hi, I'd like to show you my first painting through the gallery, and this one is from Odessa, and it is about two men talking on the sidewalk. It is done in oil. These are some of my earlier works and done in watercolor, and the first one is New York Tenant. It's a watercolor, and it was some old antiques I had sitting around, so I just decided one day to put them together into a still life. The next one over is Wash Day, and it is some old antiques still have sitting around, and I had this beautiful dress that had lace in it, so I thought it would be a good contrast in this painting. And the old iron looks like one of those you put on the wood stove, but it was one of the first electric ones. It has a cord. The next one is done at from Watkins Mill, I have to remember, and it was the summer kitchen, and I just loved the looks of the inside of that building with the herbs hanging to dry. The one down below is a tree that was on my road right close to where I live out in the country, and it fell this summer. I don't know what happened to it, but it was the most beautiful, gorgeous tree. And I would drive by and think about that tree a lot, and I wondered what it was like and, you know, how many people had seen it in its years. And so this painting is called Whispers from the Past, and it has in it ghostly figures in the clouds and on the tree. On the other side of the dining room is a painting, or not a painting, it's a charcoal that I did a few years ago. It was a pair of old shoes that I found at a garage sale for $1. I have made good use of painting those shoes. Down below is my little dog. Her name is Sally, but she has an alias, Rat Dog. And this is one of my favorite paintings because she was such a scruffy little dog with thick, wiry hair. And when I wanted to paint her, I think, what would my background be like? So I opened up a janitor's closet one day when I was teaching at school, and I saw all these mops in there with all that texture. And I thought, what a good contrast to put behind my dog. So I painted my dog amongst mops. The next painting up here, or pen and ink, is of corn husk dolls that I had made. And I thought they would be fun to do in pen and ink, so I put them in a box and wrapped Christmas tree lights around them. And that's the effect I got. The painting in the living room is of Appleton City. My daughter and I have written a children's book, which we haven't published yet or finished. But when I was down doing my research, I ran across this old mill and thought, what a great painting that would make. This is in oils. Another recent painting I've done is of Mr. Washington. I took a picture a few years ago in Independence, Missouri, and of this gentleman who let me into his cobbler shop to do just that. And I did this painting of him. First, I started off with a lot of color in the painting. It's done in oil, and I didn't like the effect of it, so I went back over it with neutral colors, and the colors underneath shone through, so I was very excited how this painting turned out. He's at his sewing machine doing his work on the shoes. This painting is for a cover for a book that I have illustrated for a friend, Henry Yeager. The title of the book is The Adventures of Henry Yeager, and it is quite a story of all the things that he did when he was younger and older too. This was constructed from seeing a picture of him when he was a little bit too big to be sitting in a toy airplane getting his picture taken. And we thought this would be fun to actually put him up in the sky in a battle, World War I, with the Red Baron and all the other things that are happening. This painting is called All the Many Faces. It's surrealism and also abstract. And you have to look close to see that there are more paintings of faces in the background in the negative space. Most people don't see that when they first look at it. The painting of the tree was one of my most important paintings because it was a tree that I had a dream about, and I could see the whole finished product in my dream. So I lived on a farm, and I had pasture out with lots of trees, so I took my paintings out and put my paints in a bucket. And from there, I went out to the pasture to paint this tree. And what happened was the cattle saw the bucket, and they thought I was going to feed them. So it was a little hard doing plein air painting, doing this painting. So there are leaves that are vignetted in the background, and it's hard to see at first, but if you look closely, you'll see them. The train painting is on signboard and was actually meant to be outside. It is painted with sign paint, but when I finished, I didn't want it to be outside. This is an actual train that used to come through Warrensburg. These are a couple of my corn paintings I have done over the years. I've done a lot more than this, but when you're on a farm and this is the subject matter you pick out. This painting, you've seen the tree before in another painting in my gallery. This is the tree that is close to me where I live, and I've loved this tree, so I did another version of the tree. I'm glad I did it because I tried to do it as beautiful as it was because it fell over this summer and we no longer have that tree on our road. My grandfather, James Walter Narron, was a railroad man. He retired from the railroad. I think that's where I've got my love for trains. This painting I did of a wheel, just the wheel of the train, because it's so precisionally done. And I think most of these trains back, the steam engines were done by hand and made by hand. The painting of this train made it into a national art show. It is a train that I saw up in Paducah, Kentucky. When I was spending the night there, I went back to their art district and saw this big, huge steam engine train. The wheels were taller than me. As I took the pictures, I thought, what if I just did a painting of the wheels? This sunroom is where I do my paintings of watercolors, and I also give lessons out here. It's nice and sunny and gives us a lot of light so we can see what we're doing. Thank you, Rick, for letting me show my art to the world through Spotlight on the Arts, and taking a tour of my home and seeing the art, and also my gallery and studio where I work. Plus, this is an Airbnb, so if people want to book, they can also take an art class from me when they book.
Well, Joe, that was a great tour. And look at some of the greatest artwork, I say, in Missouri State. So I want to thank you for the tour and everything. We're just about out of time. So do you have any closing words that you would like to close with? Maybe even a hello to the family. You have a daughter, I understand. We haven't talked about that. But
Yes.
do you want to do any shout outs?
Well, I have a beautiful daughter and her family, and they live in Georgia, so I don't get to see them very often. And I have an incredibly talented son who lives in Vermont, so I don't see all my family very much, so I keep busy with my art to keep my mind off of not seeing them. So I'd like to say hello to them, and I would like to give a little bit of advice to artists. Don't ever give up.
Great.
Keep working at it. Use your social media to get out to the public and work on getting your catalog completed, because it'll take you many years to make enough work that you have a catalog, but don't ever give up.
Excellent. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I thank you so much for contributing to the Spotlight on the Arts. It's been a really inspiring visit with you, and it's been an informational and educational interview, and a great experience, I think, for everyone now worldwide. Thanks to the GIAJ Global Media OTT Network. So thank you again, Joe.
Well, thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Well, that wraps up another great, inspiring interview with an inspiring artist here on Spotlight on the Arts. Thank you, viewers, for joining me here today. Rick Jey saying stay healthy and safe. Don't forget to subscribe to GIJ Global Media OTT Network, the streaming network that's where you will see more than 175 artist interviews of all types. That's with a brush, that's an entertainer, musician, a glass blower, what have you. So take care, stay safe. Rick Jey saying, see you next time. Spotlight on the Arts.